Okay, and we're live. So hello everyone, thank you for being here. This is Luis from the BGA. Today Sebastian is on holiday, so we'll let him rest for the day. We're having today's panel on avatars, gaming, and fashion in the metaverse. Thank you very much for being here and to our wonderful speakers of today. So what is the BGA? The Blockchain Game Alliance. It's an organization committed to promoting blockchain within the gaming industry. We want to spread awareness about blockchain technologies and encourage adoption of this technology towards creating new ways to communicate, to publish, to play, to create, to build strong communities around video games. Sorry. Okay. So the main activities we do to promote this is by networking, by researching and reporting, by representing the companies that are members of the Blockchain Game Alliance, and by advocating for blockchain in the game industry. Thank you very much to our sponsors, AMD, Antler Interactive, Illuvium, One Way Blocks, Star Atlas, Ubisoft, Falconverse, Mobox, Saya, Arc, Non-Fungible, Gamer Hashtag, IOO, TriumphX, Algorand, Anarchy, Boson, Chromia, Matic, Nexttype, Animoca Brands, Coin Tribune, Consensus, Galaxy Interactive, and Tesos.
It's a good list of sponsors. I got more.
Quite a few, yes.
Quite a few, yeah, I know. And more to come. And thank you also to our members who represent companies within the games and gaming sectors, chains and protocols, developer solutions, esports, press, media, and others, of course. These are some of the activities we normally do. We include interviews, workshops, collecting NFT series, new members presentations, women inclusive dedicated events, and free speaking opportunities and conferences, and of course panels like this one we're doing right now. So without further ado, let's start with today's panel on avatars, gaming, and fashion in the metaverse. Serena, stage is yours.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this panel conversation. We have the pleasure to have some of the most influential people in the space, I would say, that have been working in anything that involves the creation of avatars, digital fashion, and really making a change in this entire ecosystem. So I am pleased to welcome you all on stage, and we can start by going around the room and give a short introduction about yourself and your project. We'll start with Evelyn Mora from Digital Village. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Evelyn Mora, and I'm founder of Digital Village. It's a social metaverse built on Unreal Engine and with its social graph blockchain interface. Glad to be here with you all.
Thank you for joining us. We'll continue with Amber from The Fabricant. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. So my name is Amber. I'm a co-founder and creative director of The Fabricant, which is a digital-only fashion house. We create clothes that are always digital and never ever physical. And with that, we try to change what identity means in the 21st century. And we try to recreate our notion of how we dress ourselves within these new spaces, especially within the metaverse, and how we can reduce the amount of physical clothes in the world, because there's just too much, and how we can actually experiment more with our identity within the virtual worlds. That's our point of interest, and we want to make all of this available for everyone. So every single person that wants to go and create digital fashion should be able to do so. So we're building also a platform through which people will be able to create their own digital fashion. So yeah, many things. So that's very short. I'll pass it on to the next one.
Thank you so much. We have next Toksam in avatar format. So welcome. How are you?
Hey, what's up? How are you doing? So my name is Toksam. I'm the founder of Polygon and Mine. We build many stuff in the metaverse, and I'm also the founder of Crypto Avatars, which aims to be the place for unique avatars across the metaverse.
Amazing. Thank you. Did you want to add anything? Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm just in love with the way you look and talk, so we'll talk about that later. And then we have Emma Jane. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you for having me. My name is Emma. I'm the founder of Digitalics, and Digitalics can best be described as a Web3 fashion protocol. So we are combining decentralized tech, NFTs, DeFi, crypto, to revolutionize the entire fashion industry. So we have an NFT marketplace for digital and physical fashion. We have a casual esports platform that allows players to purchase really cool skins and then take them across the metaverse into different gaming environments and score on a leaderboard to earn cryptocurrency. So it's really adding, more kind of meta utility to fashion through models like where to earn, DeFi, staking, and then in-game utility as well.
Amazing. And you also have a fan in the audience, so we'll definitely get to a live Q&A later on. So thank you. And last but not least, we have Ben. So welcome on stage, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Ben. I'm French, as you can tell. I'm one of the 3 co-founders of Artifact, and Artifact is a metaverse, native brand that we created to really put together all our passion points, what we love from video games, anime, crypto together to make what we hope to be a blueprint of what the brand of the future can be. And actually, we worked with most of the people who are on stage, so we are very, very collaborative driven. We make lots of stuff with big artists, some brands collaboration we've done in the past as well. And we're mostly known for making really cool sneakers that we make as purely virtual ones. And sometimes some of them can unlock you access to physical ones. So that's the general info on Artifact.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here, guys. So I just want to start with some questions, but I also want to keep the floor open. So if any of you want to add anything to the points we're going to touch on during this panel conversation, or just send questions live from people watching, please do. Feel free to just keep the conversation open. So the first question I had for you guys was about how would you describe digital fashion, and what do you think are the possibilities and the limitations of it? So anybody that wants to give it a go. So if we were going to define digital fashion, what that translating to, maybe we can start from Amber.
Yeah, sure. So digital fashion is limitless possibility in the way you express yourself within these new spaces, but also within the world itself. I mean, we're not far away from the digital world integrating with the physical world, and this actually being a layer on top. So I think, anything in which you are able to curate the space around you, whether this is within a metaverse or around you in the physical world. How are you curating that space? And this can be from digital clothes up to objects that you carry with you. So within games, like this is also like, the stuff that you earn or that you own. And yeah, I think digital fashion can be so much because it's undefined. And the beauty of that is that, basically it's for us to figure out what digital fashion means. And I think we long have not experimented enough with what that can mean. So, right now we wear a dress, and this dress can only, be carried around our bodies because that's the physical way of carrying stuff. But within the virtual space, maybe there's something dragging 10 meters behind you. In the physical world, that's impossible. But in the virtual world, you can do so many cool, interesting new things with your identity. And I think digital fashion is the promise of this new exploration of what fashion can mean and identity as a communication tool within the virtual space. So I guess that would be my 2 cents. Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. It makes complete sense. And I think also going towards a more sustainable way of creating, there's definitely a lot of opportunities there. But thinking about some of the challenges in terms of adoption or endorsing more users into this, I wish for Evelyn maybe to to share some words around that. What's your experience around some of the challenges that you may have encountered in your project?
Yeah, well, I think if we talk about fashion, digital fashion, we have to have pretty extensive knowledge or close collaboration with the actual fashion industry to be able to find common ground and ways for the actual traditional fashion industry to adapt to this new ecosystem or deep virtual economy, if you will, into this new space. I do think that virtual fashion is a part of fashion industry. They are not separated, but I would definitely see that there needs to be more close collaborations, but there are already a lot of collaborations going on. But in terms of helping the fashion industry to actually be able to adapt to these new opportunities that digital fashion offers, but the same thing goes for digital art, working closely with museums and the art industry. So I think very complex topics that has to be essentially approached from a very multidisciplinary perspective. And I think that we need to drop the idea of one size fits all element, because I think that digital tools are everything but that. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Any of the other speakers want to add to opportunities and challenges around digital fashion and the entire industry around the metaverse? Emma, perhaps.
Yeah, I can add to maybe more of the challenges. I think that, a big problem when we think about the digital fashion industry and where it's been so far, even kind of still how it's talked about today, it's very much about the tech, or it's about, okay, well, we can wear this cool dress or do this and that. It's never talked about how it actually serves people's desires. And I think that that's still a huge challenge in adoption. Even when we think about, combining with NFTs or decentralized tech, it's really just kept in a very raw, boring premise of, okay, well, you have to kind of fit this use case or kind of adhere to this structure. And so, communicating in more of a way of well, how does it really serve someone's desires who wants to enter the metaverse, or they want to kind of create a new identity, a new avatar, reinvent themselves and have greater utility and greater value. I think talking about it more from that front is really, what we need to focus on as an industry, as kind of, leaders in the industry and building in it, to make sure that users coming in, they're not just seeing, okay, well, what is digital fashion? Is it just some 3D model that I'm meant to wear? But rather, how is it something that could completely transform how I interact with physical clothing or digital clothing as well? How can it really bring me more value? And I think that's really what NFTs, when we think about the intersection of fashion and NFTs and blockchain more in general, that's really where the kind of compounding value comes from, because it allows for that. It allows you to unfreeze previously frozen assets, create more utility, and just better tap into people's desires and human desires.
Which is a very important aspect to keep in mind. So thank you for sharing that. I was going to move to Tuxem and ask you more about how have you been approaching the adoption of crypto avatars and endorse new users? What's your strategy on that?
What's the strategy on that? I guess the strategy is into integrations, make your avatars are available as possible on as many platforms as possible. At the end of the day, an avatar is a concept of how do you see yourself in this new digital realm that we are entering, right? And how people remember you. And the more you can use the same looks, the more people will remember you, right? So if I can port myself into Sandbox, into Decentraland, into VRChat, into Zoom, into a call like this one, right? The more likely that you guys are going to remember me into the future. So at the end of the day, avatars are your digital representation and you want them to be everywhere. And that's kind of the challenge, right? Being everywhere, being able to be everywhere so everybody can remember you as you want them to remember you.
Sure. And as a follow-up to that question, something that just came to mind is, the use of blockchain technologies and collectibles and NFTs and anything that relates to crypto, somehow sometimes can be a barrier, for adoption. So being, you from crypto avatars, how have you been seeing the audience sort of getting into the space and be more knowledgeable about crypto as well? Do you see that as an opportunity or something that has been sort of blocking people to adopt the use of avatars in the space?
Good question. That's actually something that has been brought up many times in many conversations, and I guess it depends of what is the background of the people I'm speaking to, right? Crypto is still a buzzword, even if all of us that are here are very common with it. Most of the people doesn't understand it and associate the word crypto with something shady and that you are going to do something bad or that you are looking for the money grab or something. But at the same time, I believe that crypto is going to be a nice word in the future, like soft, right? Like Microsoft, and now, but by that time, everybody was using soft to have software, right? So I'm not sure. I will say that for some people it's a barrier. For some people it's something that they appreciate to have, and I would say it's difficult. For me, it's pretty clear, right? NFTs allow you to have provenance, to have ownership, and to prove that you are the owner of that specific avatar and that you are the person who actually are who they claim to be. But it's still very early to place crypto into every single mind and have it a good perspective. So I'm not sure. I would say that this is 50-50. Eventually will turn out to be a good idea to call ourselves crypto avatars, but maybe not. Who knows?
Absolutely, yeah. The future will tell. But I think personally that those buzzwords, are definitely more present into our daily vocabulary than a few months or years back, for sure. So we'll see how that will drive in the future. I want to move now on to Ben and ask you a question more related to the physical and the virtual world. How those two connect. In asking that question, I'd like to focus more onto the economies that you see developing in the fashion industry that can relate to NFTs and collectibles. So if you can share a bit about your experience on that.
Can you precise the question? I don't get it. Like the relationship
Sure.
between physical and virtual?
So I was thinking, given your experience, how the physical world and the virtual world have connected, and how, in your experience, you've seen that connection happening. Thinking about NFTs and collectibles, for instance.
Okay. So I mean, we still do physical goods because we think there's still a certain attraction for it, and we still today live most of our life in the real world, even though we are all in lockdown for a while. But we think it's important, and we treat them really as really good, collector items for the owners of the NFTs. And what's cool is that we make them birth, in a sense, the physical from the digital goods they have with the NFT first. So the real core of it always stays the NFT, and that's where we always make this example of NFTs are a bit like a money plate, and with the money plate you can print money, right? So we really always keep the core in the NFT itself, and from which you can get other NFTs, other experiences, and having a physical item of that NFT is one of these perks and goodies you can unlock through having the ownership. So that's how we treat it for now. We think that in the future you're gonna live more and more in your life on the virtual world, and you will have way more value in your virtual possessions than your physical ones. But still today, it's important, we think, to also merge worlds together, and that's what makes it really unique to have like both something in the virtual world and the physical world, so you can really create a unique experience for people who are buying into the brand and into the products and collecting both digital goods and physical goods. And what we did on the Ferocious one, we did like when we launched the physicals and when people started to receive the physicals, we did a partnership with StockX, so that also there's a secondary marketplace that is safe and authenticated for the physical goods as well. So it's really cool, I think, to really build bridges between these two worlds, and us who are really playing in the middle of that and trying to innovate as much as we can. And no one has the solutions, and you get the solutions by trying them out.
Absolutely, yeah, that's an interesting point of view. I want to open up to the floor actually, and to the panelists as well, in terms of what types of economies do you see developing from what exists virtually and what's outside in the real world, on the streets, and how do you see those brands sort of approaching the metaverse? And how do you see this connection from, between the real and the augmented working in the future in terms of sustainability? So Evelyn and Amber, I would love to hear from you.
So exciting question, actually. You touched to sensitive spots, sustainability. I think, the digital space or economy, whatever you want to call it, the metaverse, has so many different opportunities. So I feel like the economic models or the business models are very much related to brand identities, digital strategies that these brands want to practice. And so I think that we won't see one or two ways of monetizing or creating extra value for your brand, but multiple different ones. It's super weird. I see myself in the screen.
Sorry, yes, we're here. Just wanted to give you the full stage.
And from sustainability perspective, same thing, right? You can definitely test your product offering. You can really sort of, I love the fact that you can connect the digital and physical aspect of things. Like, how do you create strategies that fit to your specific brand identity? And everything culminates and ends up into experience, right? So I don't believe in blueprints to the metaverse idea, because I feel like there is no one way of doing it right. And however you put these things together, digital coins, NFTs, your marketplace, your metaverse, I feel like it's all about experience. So, I mean, I'm probably the only one here that doesn't come from tech background. And I have to say that I definitely see that as a very sort of big advantage personally, because I don't look at things as a tech person, but I come from sort of more communication and experience narrative side of things, branding side of things, which has maybe helped me to mold the technology into serving the experience rather than trying to fit that technology into the market, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Definitely,
I guess
yes. Yeah, sorry, Amber. Yeah,
I mean, no, I just wanted to say I agree with you, Evelyn. I think in a way also what is important is like what is true to you as a brand in going into the space, because I think it's very easy to just think cookie cutter, like, okay, let's do NFTs as a brand, and it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't have any intrinsic meaning. And I think what is really important within this space is that the fashion industry, things have been going on there, it's absolutely horrific, and we don't want to repeat those kind of things happening within the digital fashion space and within this digital space. Because the reason why we started the Fabricant in the first place is because we didn't find the right mindset of what we thought fashion meant in this day and age in the traditional fashion industry, which is all about exploitation. And actually what we want to create is something that will create value for everyone that will operate in it, so that nobody gets exploited, but that actually you can create monetization models for yourself as a creator, but also as a young fashion designer. Think about if you are a young designer and you want to start a collection. Normally you would need a lot of money to start a fashion brand, and within this metaverse, you can basically start out as a young designer creating your collections and selling them immediately. And I think this will open up a lot of creative freedom and creative possibilities from all different angles of the world, right? Because right now we have certain big brands who have been established in a certain part of the world, who have had the same narrative for a very long time. And I think it would be so much nicer or more interesting to see like what all these people from all around the world would come up with for us to wear, and to really explore what these kind of new identities could be if you give the freedom to these young designers to design these really cool, interesting new looks, and to help each other grow, rather than, you know, having this sort of secrecy within the fashion industry in which you have to keep everything for yourself and like locking everything off, and like you cannot say anything for the new collection because that's the only thing you have, your new idea. And like sharing the knowledge and all these things. I think that's for us what this new digital fashion industry is about, and in general the new Web3 space is about sharing knowledge and sharing how to grow together instead of trying to do everything alone. So for us, the new fashion industry should be about that, and I think a lot of brands have a lot of learning to do in that sense if they want to join that space. It's great to also, you know, join, but then also it's about opening up. And we've seen that with quite some brands now, that they actually say, okay, just give away our file, you know, just give away our file. It's fine. Let's see what happens. And that was actually really amazing to see, like, all of the beautiful things that were done with that. So I think brands are opening up to the idea, but there's still a lot to learn, and there's still a long way to go. And I think we have the responsibility either to show them how to do it, or to also take them by the hand and sort of, yeah, understand this new space and create a safe space for everyone.
Can I just add a quick thing here? Totally agree with Amber, and I love the micro entrepreneur sort of user as a stakeholder approach is great. But let's not make a mistake, right? Internet is extremely unsustainable. The algorithms, social media platforms are exploiting the users, right? And these platforms can still, Web3 or Web4 or Web 100, I don't care, can be used in a very unsustainable way still. So it's up to us to sort of draw those boundaries, right? To show example. That's it.
Yeah, that's a super valid point. Something I wanted to mention here and pass on the words to Emma and everyone else in the room is that, you know, what Amber has described is that those opportunities with the digital fashion, collectibles, NFTs, blockchain enabling, all of this opened up opportunities to many, many people, which is great. But at the same time, we have on one side gatekeepers like big brands coming into the space and still sort of retaining the power of iconic, you know, power of being a fashion brand or an established brand nonetheless. On the other hand, we have tons of users, some extremely talented and lucky enough to be here in the first place and get known by, you know, communities supporting them since day one, and others that have been joining later on that might find it difficult to emerge, you know, and struggling to find that way out. So I've been noticing those trends, and some people being extremely positive about the space, and some people, I don't want to say giving up, but finding it extremely difficult to navigate and find their voice or their audience out there. So given that the space has opened up tons of opportunities for as many as possible, Emma, how do you think the space is actually diverse and inclusive in a way, and actually giving opportunities that can follow up to an actual, you know, job in the future that is also your passion as a creative?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I think, you know, that's when we talk about the problems or challenges with traditional fashion or just any legacy Web 2 industry. It really is about that you have to kind of follow a structure, you have to appease and appeal to someone else in order to level up or, say, further your career, become sustainable. And really what Web3 enables and why it's kind of so revolutionary, so, you know, significant, incredible, is that it puts the power in a creator's hands, or, you know, whether they're not labeling themselves as creator, whatever they're labeling themselves as, it really puts it in their hands to create value for themselves, come into an ecosystem, give value, and then also benefit directly from that without it being destructive to everyone else in that ecosystem. Because that's really the premise of Web 2. It's that, okay, it's all about trying to control the choke points. And if you do, then you can extract value, you can be exploitative. And if you don't, then you're definitely on the losing side of that kind of zero-sum game. And so in Web3, you can align incentives, you can align group incentives with individual incentives, so that if a designer and creator comes in, they can generate value for themselves and at the same time boost up everyone else around them, which at the end of the day, that ends up kind of just feeding in value, so back to themselves. And so I think that really is what is that significance with Web3. But as you said, kind of the onboarding side and creators coming in and finding support, it's still very much in early stages and immature in certain areas. So it's difficult. And I mean, kind of with Digital X and how we're doing it, I often describe that Digital X, we're kind of creating the infrastructure, the aqueducts, the pipes for Web3 fashion and really what that can look like. But at the end of the day, the liquidity and the water, it comes from the designers, it comes from their activity, them, kind of benefiting them, pouring their heart into their creative work. And that's when we formed the Global Designer Network. So that is hundreds of highly talented and skilled digital and physical fashion designers, some that are completely new to Web3, others that have been in it for some time, some that are new to design, others that are veterans at it, and really coming together that align with this mission of we need to overturn the traditional fashion industry. It's not just, like this side thing of, okay, well, let's hope that it gets better. We really need to overturn it because, kind of like how Evelyn and Abba mentioned, the way that it's run now is completely destructive. It's really not beneficial to anyone involved. It's that problem as well where these bigger luxury brands and that they think that they have the leverage or they have the power, but at the same time, they're actually being really, destructive to their industry. And eventually that will kind of not end well. So the Global Designer Network, it's about being that supportive, decentralized, independent network of designers that want to come into this space, that align with the mission, but they can maintain self-sovereign independence. They can maintain kind of their own creative power and creative ownership, but at the same time, they can work together in a group and a community to actually, level and support each other up. And that's something great and incredible. And I'm so excited to see where that goes.
Absolutely. I definitely feel what you're saying, Emma, because I think the fear that most have is that those brands can come into the space and sort of take what happens in the world out there into this space. So it's important that we all stay open and collaborate in a way that is sustainable for everyone. So definitely an interesting point. I'd love to move on to Ben now and ask something more, I would say, hands-on, and ask you how those projects come together, how much you build in-house or outsource, and how do you develop a project from 0 to 10?
Now, from on our side,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do 100% in-house. We do everything in-house, and also because that's why we created our own company, is also to bring all the cool guys we know since years. Like, that's one of the things I love the most, is to bring all these people I've been keeping in touch for such a long time and tell them to come with us at Artifact and really enjoy creative freedom, have a part of rev share in the projects we do together, and really try to reshape a bit how you think of a creative brand and studio in a sense. And we do everything fully in-house. And we try to, we've been approached by all the big brands, and I mean, honestly, everyone in the space, and we said no to 99% of them, including some people that no one would have said no to, but we even said no to, like, some really big guys, simply because we don't want to break that thing that we think is really, really precious for now, which is to really work purely focused on what we think is cool, what we think is going to be groundbreaking, and not go through any bullshit approval process or marketing department feedback, or because we don't want to work with brands because we need to go at their speed and their political process, as we're lucky enough that there's zero politics in Artifact, or even within the general NFT space. That's quite cool. Everyone is helping each other, releasing projects, trying to push things forwards. So the more we can keep that kind of genuine energy, we will do it. And usually for us it's quite fast. Like, we decide to do a project, we and we plan it out and we do it and we launch it. There's no like secret secret process or anything like that.
Understood completely. Thank you. And Toxam, how does it work for you? Like, how do you start the creative process and how do you make it, live?
How do we start the creative process is something that I'm not sure yes I should tell here, but I would say that you get intoxicated somewhat in some way and you have a lot of brainstorming ideas, or not, when you just have a coffee and start bouncing ideas between each other, and eventually we came up with something that we like and we let it rest a little bit, and then we go back and polish all the things that doesn't make sense after a couple of days of thinking about it, right? After that, we usually do some concept design that help us to visualize what it's going to be. And if we are okay with it, we start breaking down everything into more production feeling, and then just placing a deadline and start working on it. It works the same if for clients and for brands. I will say that I agree with Ben. Working with some brands is a pain in the ass, especially if they are big guys with a lot of structure, and it doesn't really match with crypto sometimes. Crypto is very fast speed, and I will say people is improvising all the time. Feels like we are all improvising all the time, right? And the moment if you get approached by a big company and they tell you something and then you tell them that you are going to be improvising all along, they get scared, like super scared. Like they eventually, if the company is super big and they don't understand, that's probably why we cannot see super big companies yet into the scene, because they don't understand what's going on. Even if you explain that to them, they still don't understand that it's not the same audience. That's something that I try to explain to them. Is like, you got your audience outside the metaverse. This audience feels and breathes and understand everything differently. So you have to behave like they behave, not like trying to bring your own stuff into here and break things, right? It's more an accommodation of them understanding. And the ones that understand it and are okay with it, those are the ones that we end up working with, and they start joining our chaos, our chaotic process. But I guess that's how we work, right? We first think about it, and then we polish it, and then we just crunch to meet the deadline.
Interesting. I saw briefly Amber nodding, and I know the Fabricant has been working with some big brands in the past and currently also. So I just wanted to hear from you how, on the opposite end, you've been exchanging communications, but also collaborating and creating things together with the Fabricant and other brands. So if you have any example, good or bad, that you want to share would be great.
Yeah, enough learnings. I think one of the most important things is the fact that this industry has been operating in the same way for more than 50 years, so there's a certain process in place. And a lot of times these brands, when you ask them for a certain file or a thing or something that they need to deliver, then usually that is already sort of a whole process on its own to deliver files and to do that in a correct way so that we can work with it. I think a lot of times a lot of brands are not ready for this world because they don't understand it, and I think that really takes a lot of time to sort of understand and to create those ways of communicating. Because I think when we started in 2018, like we've been constantly like sort of talking about digital fashion and digital only product. It can be so cool for your brand to have a digital only product that you can only wear, in virtual spaces. And brands back then was like, they were like, yeah, I'm sorry, but we don't know any of this and we don't want it. And and we started out working more as a sort of way to help them create a more sustainable process in terms of their sample design and in terms of their marketing. So that's when we worked with brands like Puma, in which we did like digital sampling for them and then created these digital marketing videos through which we didn't have to fly all across the world to create this video, but we were able to film in the desert and create this sort of environment. And that was sort of the first steps into the industry and pushing them forward. And ever since then, we've been helping brands sort of digitize their supply chain and digitize their samples, which is already saved up to 80% for some brands, all of the samples that they create. And we believe that it is also necessary to take the industry with us, because in a way it is important to take everyone, because there's still so many people that are polluting so much. And I wish just that this technology can also, in a sense, be better for them in the now rather than in the future. And after the pandemic, which has been absolutely crazy, because when the pandemic hit, obviously the whole fashion industry stopped. Almost all fashion industry stopped, and suddenly all of the brands were knocking on our doors, being like, "Hey, can we still do a fashion show? Can we still create this stuff?" Which was interesting, because they all wanted to have a model on a catwalk with a realistic fabric, and then we were like, "Yeah, okay, but that isn't really pushing the boundaries at all." So I think the realization has been people want what they already know. And then I think for us, it is sort of the task to create those new experiences and to create those new fantasies in order to push the boundaries further. And I think that's why I love the collaborations, even the collaboration we did with Artifact, really pushing the boundaries of what is possible, and also challenging notions, challenging norms, and also creating emotional storytelling behind the products again, instead of just creating fast fashion that will last only a couple of weeks, let's say. We want to create things that really will have impact and that will generate conversation, going back to what fashion already originally meant, which is a communication tool that you wear around you, and with which you can communicate to other people, telling those stories and talking about subjects that you can't normally talk about. So I think our experience with brands have been quite broad, because we've seen a lot of the spectrum. But I think right now what's super exciting is that more and more brands are interested in virtual only goods, and it is going to become a massive thing for brands to have that sort of separate section. And I hope personally that they will then reduce the scope of their physical goods. But I don't know how this is going to go. Usually that's the narrative that we try to push. It's if we're doing a digital only garment, I don't want you to create a physical version of it. But obviously we're not in control of it. So I think there's still a lot to learn. But yeah, we constantly try to educate the brands by just telling our story, and by showing them that this is actually a better way forward for the planet, for resource-wise, accessibility-wise. There's just so many benefits to it. So once people are going to see it, I think it's a no-brainer. But I think until now, we're still stuck with the physical in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, yes. That's a valid point. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Amber. I have a final question, and then I want to add on to something towards the end that I think it could give a good summary to what has been discussed so far. So looking at interoperability of digital assets and connecting those with the real world, that, as Amber has said just now, can still be a challenge in some cases, since we're so attached to things that we can touch and experience in the real world. What is your view and potential solutions on making the metaverse, digital fashion, and avatars experiences mainstream and sustainable in the long run? I will start with Evelyn, and then we can also get Emma and Toksam to answer this question.
Yeah, I think I have a perspective to this whole industry more from a lifestyle perspective. I don't think it's the brands or an industry that decides how the future is going to look like. It's all of us, that how we decide to live and what kind of lifestyles we decide to maintain. Essentially, demand is the point, the reason why these companies still exist. So I would say that depending on how our lifestyles is going to develop, which is, by the way, the part that I love about Metaverse, because it's not just about fashion or about art or about specific industry, but it's the entire experience. It's about socializing, buying, attending events, experiences, and all much more than that. So essentially, I think that people, the masses, will define how digital fashion or physical fashion will look like in the future. I don't think it's us or the fashion industry that will just decide this is how it's going to look like and that's what's going to happen. But essentially, the masses have not adapted this yet. So we are in a very, very early stage still, even if the hype has been big. But we haven't seen, 500,000 Gen Zers have download or create their crypto wallets yet. But there are strategies on how to take this mainstream, but that has to be aligned with the lifestyles of these people that, we are building this for. And again, it's the internet. For me, this is all the next internet. So it's a big question. It's a big job. So we need a lot of people. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Evelyn. And Emma, how do you see these, and everything that we've been discussing so far, digital fashion avatars and the metaverse becoming mainstream?
Yeah, good question. I really think it's just about how you can provide more value to people, because once you tap into their desire and you show them how it's really benefiting them, then it's really off to the races. And, that's just the challenge at the moment, is that it's not framed to people in terms of how it benefits them in their day-to-day life, how, why they need it over the way that the traditional industry is operating at the moment. Because if you go on the street and you ask a lot of people, well, what's NFTs, what's Web3, like why should you interact with it? A lot of them, they kind of will just shrug and say, well, I really don't know. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my life. I can still kind of go on with my day-to-day, and I don't need it. And so it's really about just showing that, and this is really the premise of the metaverse. It's all about adding more utility behind everything. So you can operate within a physical environment, within multi-layers of a digital environment. And, in the case of digital fashion and that intersection with NFTs or with Web3, it's all about reinforcing that, because there's these crazy new models and monetization models, new models for creators to be able to sustain, new models for wearers and kind of what value they're getting out of it. Like, for example, like where to earn, how do you actually put your fashion to work for you? How could you, purchase a digital or physical NFT and then also gain more financial value from it? These kind of things are really important for like just mass adoption and people understanding why it's relevant to them. So there's definitely that side. And then, the other side is all about the technical side. Like, how do you actually have interoperability of 3D assets? Because that's a huge challenge at the moment. And I disagree when people say there's going to be one standard, or the future is like everyone adhering to one, say, file format. I think it's all about dynamism, modability, and being able to kind of adapt and create new mechanisms through a transformation, to be interoperable with multiple different metaversal layers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your answers, guys. As we are coming to a conclusion to this panel, I just want to invite the audience, if you have any question, to fire it now. And
yeah, we have a couple.
Okay, go for it, Luis. Thank you.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of questions there. The first one is from FUD0. So could you discuss if an organization like an Interoperable Standards Council would help standardize assets for an interoperable metaverse?
Talking about standards, anybody want to pick that up?
I can take that up. All right. I will say that I'm not sure if that specific council is going to be the one that is going to be pushing boundaries. I think it's more about not using proprietary file format systems, so anybody can build on top of that. My vision is, if we build something like the web is very open. You can see how every website is done, and you can pretty much copy and paste and build on top of it. And that's how innovation has been driving in the internet the last decades. And if we do the same way for the metaverse, or the 3D version of the internet, if you want to call it that way, we need to follow the same path or the same roads, right? Using open source standards. So in the case that yours become obsolete, other people can use your work and build on top of it, and they don't have to ask permission for it or go for it. So it's more about, I will say that the smaller players are going to be using open source standards. They are going to be the ones pushing innovation in that sense, like in every single other industry that has been ever done in the past, right? And then eventually, once we prove that these standards are working and they are valid enough, bigger players are going to be using it. And we can start already seeing this with the GLTF 2.0 files for 3D file formats. GLBL has been also doing pretty much really good lately. And I mean, I'm not sure about the councils. I know that pretty much every single standard or every single file standard format out there has its own council of its own entity that protects it, and people get affiliated with it. But this is more about giving time and see which one is going to be the one that that wins the bet. Or I don't think it's going to be just one, right? We have GPH and PNGs for images, and both of them do different stuff. But the same day is the same file format. It will take time, I guess.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And there's another question by Eduardo Neun. Does an avatar need to have a body? Like, is it okay to just create a head, for example, like Sordon of the Power Rangers?
I mean, you can be a dinosaur. You can be anything. Like
you can be anything. You can be a banana. You can be a cool banana.
I mean, I would love to dress that. I mean, there's anything. You can be anything. You can be a cloud. You can be, a river. You can be anything. Yeah.
That's the beauty of being fully digital.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. And I have a final question to anyone in the panel, actually. So probably, or we know that people create their avatars based on like their physical selves. Like, yeah, I see myself like this, so I'm gonna, or I see myself, or I want to be like this, therefore I will create an avatar that looks like this, for instance. But do you see, or how do you feel about people molding their physical selves to match their avatars? Do you see that coming? Is that like the future of avatars? How do you see that?
You mean plastic surgery, as in if that people are sort of changing their face to look like Snapchat filters or like their avatars?
Well, that might be a point, but also like, for instance, you can add personality traits to an avatar. Do you see people trying to mold these personality traits to match their avatars? Surgery that was something I wasn't considering, but probably people will do it in the near future, probably.
Yeah, it's a huge problem already. Like, there's a lot of sort of kids who go to plastic surgery,
Really?
like plastic surgeons with like the Snapchat pictures of their faces and try to recreate that. And obviously, I think it comes down to the root of like how can you be happy with yourself? Mm-hmm. And how can you not want to all the time, be a version of yourself that you're trying to constantly, run away from you? And I think a lot of times this has to do with mental health. And I think in a way, like the digital world could become a beautiful place where we can all connect and we can share things, but it can also become something that really isolates you. So we all have the responsibility to really pick up that responsibility to work together, to not recreate whatever's happening in the real world, and try to create more, I would say, empathy with each other. But I'm also very curious what it would be like to have a personality or have an avatar, walk in the metaverse by, even the avatar for me, for instance, by herself in the metaverse. What would she talk about? Like, is there an AI that is controlling, the way that I speak based off my personality within the metaverse? What would she do? Or how would she interact with people? Would she have the same quirks that I have? Or like, how would she behave? And I think these kind of things are all things that are not answered at all yet, and that are all left for exploration. But maybe any of the other panelists have ideas on this too.
I'd like to add that I love the term user as a stakeholder, because currently we're just like a bunch of lambs following this one algorithm. And we just like, yes, we can create filters, but I feel like the more we give the users, people, tools to create the environment, avatars, and whatever they want in the digital space, that serves them as a person, that will make them happy, in my opinion. We shouldn't push like one specific thing, but give them tools and let them create. And I think that's going to be a challenge for those big brands that currently manipulate the industry. And that's why this specific time right now is so important for them specifically to examine and experiment, which they are doing. And you can see in the industry that there is attempts of trying to sort of puppet master how the industry is gonna sort of evolve in the future. But we are bigger as group, and again, democracy. But we have to also be aware of that there is not one metaverse. I mean, sure, there is Roblox and Decentraland and so on, but one metaverse that is actually functioning right now. There is a lot of talk and promise, and right, but we haven't really seen something really happening yet. So I'm excited to see when those can actually be available for us to go into. We are launching in September. Yeah, so I'm excited to try it out and see how that turns out, and yeah, go from there.
Thank you so much, guys. As I'll just say out loud the same comment that somebody in the audience is sharing, which I love where this is going. So it is true there are so many opportunities and challenges, as one of the questions we shared at the beginning around metaverse avatars and digital fashion, but we're all here, I think, to influence and make a change in what we see so far and how we are going to shape the future of things. So as this panel is ending, I feel we need a part 2 to continue the conversation, but I'd love for you very briefly to share the one thing you wish to do today, to improve what has been created so far. So if there was the one thing that you wanted to have in the metaverse, in fashion, or as an avatar, what would it be? You can be creative on that. So if there was the one thing that you wanted to have that currently doesn't exist, even if it's not technically possible, what would you guys do? Emma, I see that you've unmuted yourself, so go for it.
Do you mean like on our avatar, for example? We'd like a
yeah, like something that currently doesn't exist and you want it to happen or create or make it happen,
within like the fashion industry, I would just say much greater emphasis on Web3 principles, because I don't think that it's like digital fashion or fashion and then Web3. They're really you can't have one without the other in order to move this industry forward. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but it's definitely something that I want to keep doing and really make happen.
Great. I would like to steal that I have this, because I'm like a goldfish, I forget my thoughts. I would love to jump around the metaverses and just like collect stuff and then have those actions directly have an impact in the physical world, like watering plants or farms, or having a real impact. That would be really cool. So robotics, 3D printing, AI, really fascinated around those topics when it comes to physical and digital connection. So something that doesn't exist yet that might exist in the future, that would be mine.
I think for me it would be, to be able to really curate the space around you, and that you would be able to see that with a lens, and it would be really, really clear what you're expressing yourself as within the world, and there's really this layer on top of the world. I think to me that's extremely fascinating. And also I think the second part of this wish is really that we stop producing clothes right now, because if we stop producing clothes right now, we can dress ourselves still for the next 50 years with all the clothes that are still on this planet. So like we can just stop right now and that would be my wish. And then, because the world is as you've seen with all the floods and forest fires, it's really not going in the right direction.
I have to be a party killer or mood killer and say that there is a consequence. If we would stop right now everything, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in developing countries would literally drop dead and die.
Of course, I know that.
Yeah, so it's just in general, like the entire fashion ecosystem is so big, and interdisciplinary, interconnected, that we can't just stop, but we need to find a way how to change. And yeah, there is a podcast about this on my website with the World Economic Forum about how we cannot just cancel or boycott, but how can we change?
Transform.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. I understand, Evelyn, and it's not like I'm saying like we should do that right now. It's more like a wish that we can just at least think about a different way of dressing ourselves. And of course, I know the implications in all these developing countries. I just know that the system is toxic for everyone. So that's why I say it needs to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam and Ben, final thoughts on what your wishes are for the space?
Yeah, I don't have that many wishes. I just want it to continue to grow, and I don't want it to be spoiled by the old world, by the way they come in and just replicate the way of working that's not conform to like the possibilities of having true ownership and a decentralized community. And the main thing I'm waiting on is AR glasses, but we all know that some big guys are working on this. I'm just waiting and doing stuff in the meantime, getting ready for it.
Thank you. Yes, I've been waiting for the same thing to come to life. Yeah, so it's amazing. Thank you, Ben. And Sam.
I will say that I would like to keep exploring and doing experiments as much as possible. I think we are still in a phase of highly experimentation, and a lot of crazy ideas are going to be doing. Probably one of the biggest or most weird ideas that I have is being able to storage your real life image every day. Like you can have your own aging if you wanted to with a slider. That will be awesome. These images where people do a screenshot of themselves every day and then they post a video and you can see so pretty much the same thing, but with your whole body. And you can, whenever you are 19, you can choose to use your avatar as you were 15, for example, something like that. That will be pretty awesome, pretty interesting to see. But I will agree with Ben. As long as we can just experiment, do crazy stuff, that's fine with me.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, I wish to thank you all for being here, and thanks to the amazing audience for the wonderful comments and questions you guys have shared. Good luck with everything. Enjoy your summer, wherever you are. And thanks once again for being here at the BGA talking about avatars and digital fashion and the metaverse. So thank you, everyone. Stay tuned. We'll see you again next week. And thanks so much for sharing your thoughts at the BGA.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Make sure
Bye.
to
Bye.
join next Friday.